A shadowy scheme. Over 1,000 inmates in England and Wales sidestepped through a controversial early release program. The British prison system is teetering on the brink of another catastrophic capacity crisis, a stark reality masked by a controversial early release program that is raising serious concerns amongst justice officials and prison staff. While the Labour government touts its efforts to alleviate overcrowding through early releases and transfers to open prisons, a confidential whistleblower's account reveals a deeply troubling undercurrent. A shadowy scheme potentially releasing over 1,000 inmates, bypassing the established parole board process altogether. This revelation casts a long shadow over the government's claims of effective prison management and raises serious questions about public safety. Last month, a clandestine directive was issued to prison officials, mandating the implementation of a new policy designed to expedite the release of recalled prisoners. This policy, shrouded in secrecy, significantly shortens the time inmates spend behind bars after being recalled for violating the terms of their previous release. The Observer has obtained exclusive information revealing that over 1,000 inmates are currently being considered for this clandestine release program. Once fully implemented, this policy could potentially add approximately 400 more offenders to the streets at any given time. Internal guidance documents, leaked to the Observer, outline the surprisingly lax criteria for eligibility. Inmates are deemed suitable for this accelerated release if they are assessed as posing a low risk of serious recidivism, do not represent a high risk of serious harm, and are not under investigation for a serious further offense. These vague and subjective criteria raise serious concerns about the accuracy and reliability of the risk assessments, leaving a significant margin for error and potentially endangering public safety. The lack of transparency surrounding these assessments further fuels anxieties about the potential consequences of releasing potentially dangerous individuals back into society. The Ministry of Justice, MOJ, attempts to mitigate these concerns by announcing the imminent opening of HMP Millsyke, a new 1,500-capacity prison in Yorkshire, and ongoing expansion projects at other facilities through the construction of new housing blocks. However, these construction endeavors, even if completed on schedule, are unlikely to solve the systemic issues plaguing the prison system. Mark Fairhurst, chair of the Prison Officers Association, highlights this precarity, stating that while the building program may alleviate overcrowding, the system remains acutely vulnerable. He points to a recent emergency, as recently as last month, where prisoners were temporarily held in police cells in the northeast and northwest of England due to overwhelming prison capacity. This emergency measure underscores the fragility of the system and the dire consequences of a lack of proactive, comprehensive solutions. The clandestine early release scheme raises a multitude of critical questions. How robust are the risk assessments determining eligibility? What safeguards are in place to monitor the released individuals and ensure public safety? Is the government prioritizing cost-cutting measures over public safety? The lack of transparency and the rushed implementation of this scheme raise serious ethical concerns and fuel public distrust in the government's handling of the prison crisis. This policy feels less like a carefully considered solution and more like a desperate attempt to address an escalating problem by sweeping it under the rug, potentially at the expense of public safety. The potentially devastating consequences of releasing hundreds of inmates based on questionable risk assessments deserve far greater scrutiny and public debate than they have received thus far. The government needs to provide clear answers, not just assurances, to the growing anxieties surrounding this controversial and seemingly reckless early release scheme. The silence speaks volumes, and the potential consequences are simply too significant to ignore. The public deserves transparency, accountability, and assurance that the government is prioritizing public safety above all else.